So I think we'll just go ahead and get started now. My name, as it says on the Zoom window, is Kevin Madison. I work as the Associate Director with the Master's Programs at Project Dragonfly at Miami University. And I've been in this job for about 10 years. I'm originally from New York City. I also lived in Chicago, and then I ended up in Ohio. And it's been great. It's been a dream program to work for, to get to travel and go to these wonderful places. In fact, this picture is from this summer. It's from our Baja course in Mexico. And right in those waters that you're seeing there are whale sharks, which are completely gentle giants of the sea, and an incredible experience to be able to be close to on some of those courses. So we were so just inspired and felt so grateful to be able to travel this summer, especially after 2020 and COVID. So it felt even all the more special to be able to connect with these places and wonderful people. So what I want to do is just let the other folks that are presenting tonight say a quick hello and what their role is with the program. So I think I'll pass it to you, Connie, because you're right next to me in the window here.
Thank you, Kevin, and good evening, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here this evening, coming to you live from my living room. So if you see a dog run by or a cat waving its tail, you'll understand why. I serve as Project Dragonfly's Graduate Student Services Manager, and my role connects to everything from sort of the point of application and admissions all the way through graduation. I've been with Project Dragonfly for 14 years, which I can't believe I think it's 14 in November this month. And it's been an incredible journey. I don't journey literally as much as Kevin and Jamie, your primary co-hosts tonight, do, but I get to absolutely experience the thrill and excitement of the educational adventures our students and our instructional team go on each and every summer, and also the adventures our AIP students experience at the zoos and botanical gardens that they affiliate with. So this evening, I will be primarily managing questions through the chat. You're welcome to post them there, and any that we can't answer in the chat, we'll bring up to Kevin and Jamie for a direct answer through this webinar. So enjoy, and I'd like to introduce you all to Jamie Burkott and Zano.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie, and I have been at Dragonfly for 25 years. Just celebrated that anniversary in August. So I've been with the program since the beginning, when we were a children's science magazine funded by the National Science Foundation, through a whole bunch of projects I'll talk about in a little bit, and to the master's degree where we are now. I function as the Director of Communications, and I'm also an advisor and an instructor in the program. So that's me. Kevin, should I pass it back to you, or are we going to introduce?
Let's see if Chandler wants to come off mute and say hello. So we're fortunate to have Chandler, who is a graduate of our program, so he can bring the student perspective, and he's also working with us and our Baja course. So we traveled together this summer. So Chandler, if you want to say hello to everyone.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Hey, everyone. So my name is Chandler Sharp. I am Education Assistant Supervisor at the Dallas Zoo. So I live in Dallas, Texas right now, and I'm also one of the community learning leaders in Project Dragonfly. So as Kevin mentioned, we traveled together actually to Baja, which is the very place that you're looking at on your screen. So that's where we're at. That's where we were at this past July. So it was an incredible experience, but overall, basically community learning leader. Also help facilitate the course, both the online portion and the field portion. In any way, whether it's through the assignments, whether it's through logistics and everything of that nature. So I'm a Global Field Program graduate from 2019. So I graduated in December of 2019. And then the following year, I got moved over to community learning leaders. So my overall experience has been incredible, and can't wait to show you guys more.
Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks, Chandler. Sorry, I was thinking about Jeannie, who was going to join us as well, but I don't see her just yet. So hopefully she will be able to join us as a graduate from the AIP program. So let's jump right into it. We have a few slides, but basically what we're going to do is talk about the master's degrees, the AIP and the GFP, and the different degree tracks that we have, a Master of Arts in Biology and a Master of Arts in Teaching. And then we'll have hear a little bit more from Chandler about his journey as an alumni of the program. Then we'll talk about, we always get this question, what will these programs prepare us to do? So we want to try and answer that. And then we'll finish up with some application tips and additional questions. And like Connie said, if there's any questions at any time, just feel free to interject using the chat function. As always, COVID is on people's mind, perhaps a little bit less right now, fortunately, than it has been over the last 2 years, but we still just wanted to address it right out, particularly with a global field program, living in a time where there's a global pandemic. The question is, how can we deal with that and make sure that we're doing things in a safe way? Over the last couple of years, we've been monitoring each country. Each country is different, has different response levels. And one of the unique things of this program is that we work with grassroots organizations in all these countries. So unlike some programs where you might travel with a professor who is not from that country, in this program, you will travel with Myaamia instructors, community learning leaders, like Chandler, the role Chandler has been in, and you'll also get to meet in-country partners that we work with that are from that location. So that's really helped us in terms of making sure the field courses are safe and comfortable for everyone. And then the same with our zoos and botanical gardens we work with across the country. In New York, the situation is going to be a little different than in California or in Denver. And so each of those locations is carefully monitoring the situation. And we're so happy that we can meet via Zoom, we can meet in person safely in many cases, and we just keep trying to figure out how to navigate this all. But the bottom line for us is that we still want to connect people in the most efficient ways we can and the safest ways we can. And as a program, we're just trying to keep making sure there are options and everyone feels comfortable. So certainly feel free to have any questions about that. Let us know again in the chat, or we can discuss later. But I want to hand it over to Jamie to talk a little bit about Myaamia's situation within Project Dragonfly's situation within Myaamia University.
Thanks. So the degree granting institution is Myaamia University. As Kevin shared, you have two options, a Master of Arts in Biology and a Master of Arts in Teaching in the Biological Sciences. But let me first start by saying we have an incredible center here. It's called the Myaamia Center, and the tribal lands of the Myaamia people are where Myaamia University sits. They were relocated to Oklahoma many years ago, but the university has created this really awesome center to honor the Myaamia people, their language, their knowledge, their values. And very recently, we had a Dragonfly Diversity Cafe that you can check out on our news and media site. We invited the folks here at the center to engage with us, and they gave us a wonderful overview of the Myaamia. So that's where we're physically located in Southwest Ohio. The university was founded in 1809. It's an old institution, accredited, has all the bells and whistles from the national organizations, the Higher Learning Commission of the North Central Association of Colleges and Schools. And where we are housed, Dragonfly is in the Department of Biology. And the picture you see there is of Pearson Hall, which is the home to biology. But go ahead and go to the next slide, Kevin, if you would. And this is our home across the way from Pearson. This is Upham Hall, and this is where our Dragonfly offices are located. And if you're looking at the building. Our offices are off to the right and a couple are off to the left. But it's a quintessential Miami building. It's a beautiful campus, red brick and ivy. We often have students who, because of the nature of our program, our students can be anywhere in the world for the GFP, and for the AIP, generally located relatively close to one of our learning institutions, one of our master institutions. And some are from Southwestern Ohio, but most aren't. And so when graduation rolls around, about 2.5 years after you enter the program, we have a big celebration during a non-COVID year, a big celebration on campus, and you can walk with your cap and your gown and your master's hood across the stage and shake the president's hand, and we all get together and have a Dragonfly dance party. It's really, really fun, but it's really fun to see folks come to the university for the first time, and they're sort of blown away by, they're going to the, I've got my Miami gear on, they're going to the the store to buy Miami sweatshirts and socks and that kind of thing. So it's kind of good, I think, to place us geographically and among a typical university, residential university. Very different for us here, but we are a residential university. And all of our graduate programs are open to everyone, all disciplines and settings, as long as you have a bachelor's degree. And that's really important to us to remember as well. It's everybody, not just science backgrounds, not just specifically biology. We have gym teachers, we have business owners, we just have all kinds of folks, like Chandler, who work at zoos, parks, from all over the place. And you'll see the two logos down at the bottom. The one on the left is our Project Dragonfly logo. Our tenets, our core tenets are inquiry, community, and voice. And when you get into the program, and maybe Chandler will talk a little bit about the specifics of that, but that's our heart and soul. And we did just celebrate 25 years of being in existence, which is really cool. The university has, since the beginning, really supported the ideas behind Dragonfly and what it is we're trying to do to uplift voices, to engage community, and to do it using inquiry to benefit human and ecological communities. So as I said a little bit ago, we began as a children's science magazine. We had lots of really cool projects with zoos throughout the country, Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden being our closest and sort of home zoo. But we have 9 master institutions throughout the country now, and a full master's degree. We started with just these classes as standalone classes, and they blossomed into what we know now as the AIP and the GFP, the Advanced Inquiry Program and the Global Field Program. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this already. Either program, whether you choose to apply to the AIP or the GFP, can lead to an MA or an MAT, Master of Arts in Biology or a Master of Arts in Teaching in the Biological Sciences. And which one you choose, we can continue conversations about which one you choose, and you can even change early in your program from one to the other if it starts feeling like you want to go a different direction. But those are the 2 degrees we offer from Miami. It takes 35 total credit hours to graduate with both degrees, in 2.5 to 5 years, as I shared a little bit ago. And so there are 4 in the center there. It says 14 credits, 100% online. And those credits are what we call core course credits. And the AIP and the GFP share those core course credits. And they provide really interesting and awesome learning opportunities because we intermingle, some of those AIP students with GFP students. And they're just, everybody's so cool, doing such cool stuff, and to intermingle and keep everybody moving is really, really interesting and fun. So those 14 credit hours are shared between the 2 programs. And then on the GFP side, the remaining 21 credit hours are in what we call Earth Expeditions classes. And we'll get into that a little bit more, but they're 7-hour experiences with online coursework and travel to one of our 15 course locations throughout the world during the summer months. And then on the AIP side, the 21 remaining credit hours are in what we call Web Plus experiential learning classes. And so they're online classes, but they have the plus, right? They have the heart and soul kind of what the AIP is. And that's the experiential learning that you do on grounds and throughout the area surrounding your master institutions. And it's very cool because 7 of those 21 hours on the AIP side can come from 7 Earth Expeditions hours. So a lot of our AIP students end up taking 7 hours of credit through 1 Earth Expeditions class. Okay, how about the next slide? Here's a map of all of our master institutions. They're just fabulous and awesome. And every time I talk to a lot of AIP applicants through Zoom calls. And I always say how awesome our partner is there every time, because each one, no matter which one I'm talking about, they're just incredible. Doing incredible work locally and globally. So these are our 9 institutions. Okay, next slide, if you would. Oop. And these are our 15 international course locations for Earth Expeditions. So we've kind of got the world covered a little bit. And each one of these partners, if someone is interested in a particular location and wonders about it, and I'm talking about our in-country partners, they're each so unbelievably fabulous. So those are our Earth Expedition course locations. Okay, I think Kevin, you've got the next slide maybe.
Yeah, and I think one thing might be on folks' minds is like, which should I choose, the AIP or the GFP? I know we looked at the registrations for folks that are here tonight, and it seemed like, quite a few folks, about 2/3 are interested in the AIP. And that totally makes sense, because if you're in one of those cities, if you're in New York or Chicago or Cleveland or Cincinnati, where all those ones on the map we just showed, maybe I'll go back here. That is a wonderful opportunity to connect with other people in your city or region that are interested in conservation. So if you're looking to network and you're looking to get to, connect with those zoological or botanical institutions, really learn more about what they're doing as a conservation organization, that is the AIP is an amazing program for that. And then the Global Field Program is really, if you are ready, you got your passport and you're ready to go and you want to travel over 3 successive summers, or you might have a summer break in there, and that's fine too, but you really want to travel and you really want to get involved in global conservation issues and really see that. And the fortunate thing, like Jamie was saying, is that you don't really have to choose one or the other, in the sense that you can do the AIP and you can still go on 1 Earth Expeditions. We have a lot of folks who have responsibilities at home, or they have a job that makes it hard to travel. So they want to go on one of these trips at some point, but they can't commit to 3. And so in that case, again, the AIP makes a lot of sense. And we also get the question a lot, which is our favorite Earth Expedition? And, there's no answer to that, other than, like Jamie said, they're all amazing. Whichever one I've most recently done is my favorite. And also with our zoo partners, these are people that are idealistic in trying to change the world. You're going to be connecting with people like that. So it's going to be a very, positive and welcoming experience with those zoological institutions we work with. Okay, so I don't know if Jeannie made it. Did Connie, do you see Jeannie on here yet? No? Okay. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to jump through some slides, and Chandler will share about his journey in the program, what it was for him as a student and his experiences with the GFP. And then if Jeannie gets to join us, we'll talk more, hear from her, or we'll fill in a little bit on the AIPN. Let me jump through some great slides that from Jeannie, who she is actually a AIP student at our Bronx Zoo WCS location, and did a ton of work in New York City schools with community gardens. And this is something that's near and dear to me, because my research, PhD research, was on community gardens. But
and hold on, she took our class in Paraguay. I was the instructor for this class. She was with me in Paraguay. She's shooting a blow dart gun there. That's her in the blue jacket.
Very cool. Yeah. So she got that. So, she was able to commit to her, as a school teacher in New York City, wanting to do work with pollinators and urban community gardens and get people connected with nature, but also go on one of these earth expeditions to Paraguay. So that's the abridged quick run through there. Let me just jump through a few more of these and I'll probably backtrack on some of this, but here we go. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, so as I mentioned before, I did the Global Field Program. So I started in summer of 2017 and then graduated in the winter of 2019. So I did 2.5 years. And so because it was a Global Field Program, I went on 3 different trips across 3 different summers. So over each of these trips, I just added a handful of photos, but I'll kind of give an overview of kind of each of those experiences I've had. So this first one was from summer of 2017. So the first time I went to Baja. So this course specifically goes over field methods. And so at first, when students may sign up and they see field methods, so the Baja is one of the 2 main courses that first year students in the Global Field Program are able to sign up for. It's one of the 2 main ones. So it's Baja and the other one's Belize, which I also hear is amazing. And some students that may see field methods in Baja and thinks like, the main thing is kind of like, they see field methods and they think it's a little scary because it's like field methods. They think everything from like just like research and maybe some tech and statistics and all kinds of things of that nature. But from firsthand experience from this first time, as well as the recent time that I went with Kevin, so it's a phenomenal trip. We learned a lot from the amazing in the field conservation partners over there. So in fact, if you look at the photo on the right, so that's us in one of the vans. So like we do kind of do a drive a caravan down in the vans. But the guy to the right of me there, his name is Lalo. And so he's part of this awesome family, and they have a ranch down there. So we're in Baja California, so think we're like really in the middle of the desert, but he and his family have this awesome ranch down there, and they're just an amazing family that basically just takes us in as a group and just pretty much shows us just the wonders and just splendors of the desert and the ocean as well. Like, I'm not doing it just putting into words like this. Like, it's amazing to see it for yourself. But for field methods, we dive into a lot of like desert and marine ecology. So we spend about half the time in the desert and about half the time in like in a marine environment, so in the Sea of Cortez. And so some folks may think like desert may not be a whole lot there. I can tell you for sure, and Kevin can as well, like there's just so much life just out in the desert. You pretty much just gotta sit and just look for it, and because it will come to you. And everything from the plants and animals that are out there to just the general scenery. I mean, you can just take a look at the photo on the left there. So that's me with one of my classmates. We actually went out one morning and we set out on a kayak and just started, we just went out kayaking to one of the islands early in the morning. And it is absolutely fantastic. And so out in the desert, so in the course, so in this course and all the other courses, there are themes, and like this theme was like desert and marine ecology, especially with field methods. So a lot of what the students did, and one of the things that I did was we went over, okay, what exactly is field methods? Like, what do people doing field research? What kind of tools do they use? We also learn how to kind of like look for questions to answer. Like, say, and part of that is a lot of observation, just looking around our surroundings. And be like, okay, kind of touching into that sense of wonder. It's like, okay, like it could be as simple as a question that says, why is this particular cactus so tall? Or why does this particular cactus have a whole lot of holes in it? Why did this particular animal hide out at night? or hide during the day, but then comes out at night? Or how come this particular animal comes out in the daytime but in the nighttime? So just any kind of question like that. So individually and as groups, they'll form different questions, and then there are time for activities where um, using tools at hand that the students get to actually use those tools to actually help answer those questions that they have. And then they present them with the groups as well. And just kind of through that collaboration, not only learn from the desert and the nature and also our in the field conservation partners, but also learn from each other as well. And they get to take all that home to their own communities and form their own projects. So with these courses, there's the in-field portion and then there's the online portion. So when I came back from all of these trips, there was a project I did in my own community and kind of took what I learned from those in-field experiences and brought them home. So Kevin, you go to the next one. Oh, did it skip one? I think maybe. Unless it went over. There we go. All righty. So real quick, I'm looking in the chat here. And see a question about my background before I started the program. So me in particular, I was kind of all over the place, but I was into conservation and nature and wildlife from when I was really young. So think like back to like elementary school. In fact, starting out with dinosaurs, as a matter of fact. So like a lot of kids have like go through like a phase where they really like dinosaurs. For me, I had to know what every type was. I was just really into it. In fact, my first dream job was as a paleontologist. But then as I started learning about more of the plants and animals that were around me and learn about the ones that were modern and just around today, I got really interested into that. So with that, I went to school. I went to the University of Georgia. So I actually grew up in Atlanta. I went to the University of Georgia, studied wildlife biology. Then after that, post-college, so right after that, I actually worked at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center, which is off the coast of Georgia. So think about it's Jekyll Island. So it's one of the barrier islands off the coast of Georgia. So that was an amazing experience there. I learned there that veterinary medicine wasn't quite for me, but I learned a whole lot, and I'm really glad I did it. If I had to do it again, I totally would. You basically get to hang out with sea turtles and all kinds of other local wildlife pretty much all day, every day. After that, I got into environmental education. So I went to another barrier island in Georgia called Tybee, actually right near Savannah, and did environmental education for children at a 4-H center there. And it was actually right around that time that I got accepted into the program. So right when I got that position, I got accepted into this program and went to Baja. After that, did a stint in the Smoky Mountains, working with the National Park Service for a few months, as well as in Gettysburg up in Pennsylvania. After that, then one of my second trip was, which I'll discuss here in a bit, to Australia. After that, got into more environmental education at a YMCA center in Texas as an outdoor educator. And right around the time I was going on my third trip, I got accepted into the Dallas Zoo as a conservation interpreter. So basically, it's educating guests and visitors about our in-field partners at the zoo and their endangered species that we have at the zoo, as well as doing expeditions, our own expeditions through Dallas Zoo and helping lead those as well. And from then on, went from interpreter until now I'm the education assistant supervisor. So that's kind of the background. And yep, so see another bulldog in there. Fantastic. Go dogs. Also doing really well. So hope that we hold well in football. I think I saw another one about if we saw any vaquitas. Unfortunately, we did not. We did not see any vaquitas, neither my first time or the second time. But we were around the area where they have been known to have been found. So part of the drive was actually through San Felipe. So it's one of the coastal towns that's right off the coast of Sea of Cortez, which is where a lot of the last known vaquitas are found. We didn't see any, but we're right around the area where they do inhabit. And so hopefully conservation efforts will somehow be able to like work with those communities and be able to help save that this incredible species. All right.
Chandler,
So,
maybe you can tell everyone what a vaquita is.
all right, great question. Fantastic. So for those who don't know what a vaquita is, so a vaquita, it has a nickname. It's known as the panda of the sea. And the reason for that is they actually have dark spots around each of their eyes, just like a panda does. And so a vaquita is a tiny porpoise it can only be found in the upper regions of the Sea of Cortez. So right around San Felipe and kind of around that upper corner, actually not too far from where the Colorado River used to go into the Sea of Cortez, so right along the delta in there. So if imagine like Mexico, like imagine this is Baja, or imagine this is Baja, and then it's like the big man of Mexico. They're found right about up here, kind of where the webbing of my hand is. So it's estimated there's only I'm not even sure what the official estimate is, anywhere from like a couple of dozen to maybe even as few as 10 by some estimates. So they're a critically endangered marine mammal. So they're the smallest porpoise, the smallest cetacean, as a matter of fact, of all the whales and dolphins and porpoises. And unfortunately, they're also the most endangered and the most rare, since some estimates even had them down to like less than 10 to the single digits. And some of which we saw, some of the threats that we even saw firsthand was just general like things like fishing nets. So the community the members of the community down there, they actually depend, a lot of them depend on fishing for their livelihoods, to feed themselves, to support their families. And so they go out and fishing, and some of them will specifically go after this very large fish called Tortuaba. And so basically believe it's the swim bladder of this fish. Basically there's a demand for that overseas in the wildlife trade market. So used for different things like traditional medicine, so specifically the swim bladder. And so this fish is quite large. In fact, it's about the size of a vaquita. So vaquitas are that tiny. And so when they fish for these Tortuaba using these large gill nets, they also unintentionally catch vaquitas in the process. They're really after the fish, but they also catch vaquitas in the process unintentionally. And so that's what's wiped out a lot of them. So that's one of the other big pillars of part of this program is community-based conservation. So it's not enough just to, you're not going to get anywhere if you don't get the local communities involved, because they're the ones who live with the wildlife, they're the ones who depend on it for their livelihoods. Like not giving local communities a seat at the table, not working with them isn't going to get you anywhere in conservation. That's a big thing that I've learned throughout my time in the program. But in a nutshell, that's kind of what a vaquita is. Alrighty. Yeah, absolutely, no problem. And so, kind of saying in the marine realm, my next trip, so in 2018, was to Australia. So this is the Great Barrier Reef course. So I had never been this far from home, as a matter of fact. So this is still to this day the farthest I've ever been from home. But man, oh man, I pretty much fell in love with the country. It's fantastic. So the Great Barrier Reef course, we were based up in Townsville, which is the city up in northern Queensland. So if you look at a map of Australia, kind of like on the eastern side, kind of go up north, kind of right along where the central section of the Great Barrier Reef is, that's where we were based at. So we actually based at Reef HQ, which is the local aquarium in that city. And so that was the infield conservation partner for that course. And so basically we learned about coral reef conservation, coral reef ecology in general. So we learned about a lot of the fish and the marine life and the corals that live out there in this section of the Great Barrier Reef, as well as, once again, community-based conservation. So we got to learn a lot about the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority. And so how they manage such a huge area. So imagine the Great Barrier Reef from top to bottom, it's about the size of Italy. So it's a massive, massive ecosystem. So we're talking about the largest living structure on Earth, the largest coral reef system on Earth. And so it takes a lot of collaboration, not only among scientists, but among tourists, among people who use the reef for fishing, for their livelihoods, also with the local Aboriginal tribes that are over there as well. So specifically, we got to meet up with members of Ngawagi country up in the area. We got to meet up with them as well. So a lot of collaboration with many different groups and how to properly manage such a large ecosystem up there. So me on the left, that's there. So we actually had some time to go snorkel and scuba dive and actually help take some data on conditions of the coral in the Great Barrier Reef. So we went to two different reefs out there. And then picture on the right, we met up with members of the Ngawagi tribe. That's actually one of the instruments they use. It's kind of similar to like a maraca, but they also use like traditional arts on there. So that's a platypus, as a matter of fact. And as a matter of fact, we even got to see a lot. We even got to see a live platypus out in the wild, thanks to some guides out by one of the rivers. It was an amazing experience. So, got to see this platypus, this awesome drawing of a platypus, as well as a real one on top of that. All right, go to the next one. All right. So even though this is the Great Barrier Reef course, we weren't strictly in the water in the ocean, although that was an incredible time. We also spent quite a bit of time in terrestrial ecosystems as well. So a couple of those. So for example, me on the left there is that's one of the tree saplings we were at. So when meeting up with the members of the Milwaukee tribe, we were at their ranch over there. So it's called Mangala Station. And so we learned about how that particular group just got started at Mangala Station, and also a lot of the broad history of like Aboriginal history. Like they pretty much they taught us a lot of things about what they do, what they've traditionally done for tens of thousands of years to survive on the land. Got to see everything from different fruits that they would eat to even a type of leaf where you could take the leaf and you pour water on it and then you rub it together. It actually suds up like soap. It was pretty cool. But we also had a tree planting activity that we did. So they actually gave us some saplings and were able to plant them. So the land that they were on, so imagine this ranch and it's pretty open just like this, but it's also right near some marshland, right near a river. And yes, there were crocodiles there as well. We actually did see a couple of crocodiles there. But basically those function as the kidneys that lead to the Great Barrier Reef. So the waters that flow through that land over there flow straight into the ocean. And one of the environmental issues that was happening over in that region was a lot of invasive plants. A lot of invasive water plants were like clogging up those water canals. And so members of the Milwaukee tribe actually working to remove a lot of those invasive plants from that area, from that water, so that the water could flow freely and flow straight to the reef. So it just went to show that a lot of this conservation doesn't just happen in the ocean. A lot of it happens on land as well, amongst many different groups as well. In fact, for the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, only a small percentage is actually the coral reef system itself. A lot more of it is actually also in like the mangroves, the estuaries, and all that further up along the banks. And another terrestrial ecosystem we visit was actually part of the wet tropics. So this is some of the oldest tropical rainforests on Earth. So specifically, we went to the Paluma Range. And so this is some of the oldest tropical rainforests on Earth. And so that's also right up against the Great Barrier Reef as well. In fact, it's the only place on Earth where two UNESCO World Heritage Sites are like right next to each other. So you have the world's largest coral reef system on one side and literally one of the world's oldest tropical rainforests on the other side, pretty much right next to each other. That was pretty cool. And then of course, special trees like Tim Tams over the bottom. So that's kind of where I fell in love with Tim Tams. I got them for the first time. I'm like, oh, they're amazing. So that was an amazing experience there. Let's see. Trying to see if there's any questions in the middle right here.
Yeah,
Chandler?
I didn't mean to jump the gun on your
Oh.
the next slide there for your Chandler, but I thought you paused, so I jumped it. But yeah, it looks like there's some questions.
Yeah, Chandler. So we do have a question that two of our guests wanted to know. They wanted to know what inspired you to do the Global Field Program in comparison to the Advanced Inquiry Program. That's one question. They also wanted to know how you feel your experience with Project Dragonfly has helped you in your position at the Dallas Zoo.
All right, all great questions. So for the first one, what inspired me to do GFP? Kind of one of the things that Kevin mentioned earlier. So funny, at the time, I have family in Jacksonville, Florida, as a matter of fact, but at the time, it's actually the newest AIP campus, if I remember correctly, but at the time it wasn't available. There wasn't, so like Zoo Atlanta is where my closest zoo. And as far as AIP, the next closest zoo was probably Cincinnati. So it's a two-part thing. So one, I couldn't really find a zoo kind of close enough for me to do AIP to actually travel to the campus to do the courses. But also the second thing was was really into traveling. So as a matter of fact, my mother used to be a Delta Airlines flight attendant. So I've been traveling a lot since I was really little. And so even before I did this program, I've done a fair amount of traveling myself, but not to any of these places that I've been telling you about tonight. And so just learning more about the program. And in fact, I only heard about this program by word of mouth. It was literally by one of my coworkers who was doing the program her first year. And the more she told me about it, the more interested I was into it. I'm like, I have to check this out. This just sounded too good to be true. The more I looked into it, the more things just played out. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this and see about these experience. And then next thing you know, checked off 3 more countries off my belt with, and seeing a lot of these places that I've been dreaming about going to, just seeing on documentaries and reading about in books, and got to seeing them in person. And also learning about the people over there too, and like how they practice conservation in those regions. So that's a big thing. Literally just hearing a lot of people actually hear about this program through word of mouth. Like I hadn't seen it anywhere on the internet, and we're trying to work on that as well, trying to get it more out there. And we're so happy that you guys came out here tonight to learn more about this program, because if I hadn't heard about it by word of mouth, I'm not sure if I would have been in the program. I may have found about it eventually, but may have done it quite a bit later. And then, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Chandler, if you see this one, and this is a question that we get a lot, and I suspect is probably on the minds of many people attending this evening. How did you manage as a student to balance your graduate studies with your professional and other life responsibilities?
Great question. So it was fortunately, so a lot of the occupations that I had, so like environmental educator at the Dallas Zoo, outdoor educator, there was some overlap. So kind of in that environmental conservation realm. So thankfully there was some overlap that allowed me to incorporate some of my projects into my job, so to speak. But even with that, it's definitely a big time management thing and kind of a balancing act in that way. So a big thing was like just devoting myself to devoting a chunk of time to be able to, okay, I need this chunk of time to, during my time off, to ask questions from my professors and mentors, to devote some time to researching things for my project, to actually facilitate my projects, to doing the assignments available. One great thing about this program that I've learned is that no matter what class I've been to, the professors and instructors have always been extremely helpful, whether it's been answering questions or saying like, hey, I'm looking ahead and I may need some more time to do this project because I have this, and this coming up. That early communication was crucial, and like everyone was able to like work something out for me to still do my project as well as my job at the same time. So honestly, communicating with your instructors about what you need and like what's going on in order to fulfill your other responsibilities as well as fulfill your responsibilities and time completing assignments and projects was pivotal, was crucial, but also amazing, and everyone's been very supportive. So I'm really thankful for that, for sure. I think there was a third question too. Something about preparing for my current position. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think it was getting at like, has this helped you? And I was thinking about your recent promotion, although I don't know if that was tied to your getting the master's or just your awesome work you were doing.
I will say it was actually a perfect segue for my last trip. So really quickly, so my last trip was in Namibia. And so I also went with Kevin on this trip. So he was my instructor for that one. So we visited the Cheetah Conservation Fund. Right when I was applying for this position, when I was applying for my position at the Dallas Zoo, so this was back in 2019, I had just been accepted to go on this particular trip. And it turns out that Cheetah Conservation Fund is also a conservation partner with the Dallas Zoo. So it was a very kind of coincidental kind of overlap there. We're both Project Dragonfly and the Dallas Zoo are both partnered with Cheetah Conservation Fund. They're like conservation partners in that way. So kind of like, and also like with this, I'm sure I had other positions and everything, and I had moved around quite a bit in different occupations and conservation realms. But I definitely feel like having this kind of like under my belt and going into this position at the Dallas Zoo kind of helped, kind of like was able to come in with a unique perspective in terms of like in-field conservation, in situ conservation, community-based conservation, and just kind of bringing that into a zoological facility. Just like, hey, this is how people in the field in these different environments practice conservation in this way, and here's some ways we can bring that to the local communities here that visit the zoo. Let's see. Trying to make sure there wasn't any other questions before I kept going. But yeah, basically, yeah, my third trip was to Namibia. So in a very arid region, kind of an arid region over in Southwest Africa. So we learned a whole lot. And so a big thing I'll kind of put in the nutshell with Namibia was we learned about sort of kind of like the official mascots, so you could say, was like, yeah, the cheetah. But we also learned about how CCF, they practice conservation with everything that's connected to the cheetah. So that's everything from like helping the farmers over in that region live with these large predators, as well, not just cheetahs, but also like the lions, hyenas, and other things that live out there. Educating school children, like actually visiting schools and educating them about the local wildlife that they have over there. Even tackling things like pollution and climate change in the matter of like they even have like a bush block program where they actually chop down and overgrown acacia trees that opens up cheetah habitat for them to be able to run and hunt, and also create a clean source of burning energy for locals to use as well. So it cuts down on pollution and cuts down on emissions as well on top of that. And that's just a handful. And like they also do like genetics work. They also use like dogs to find cheetah scat, and they take that scat and they do genetic research on it as well to see what the cheetah's been eating, and also learn about the genetics of the cheetahs. They do game counts. Like we even did some game counts over there as well. And so anything connected with the cheetah, even if it seemed kind of separate from the cheetah, they brought that into their overall conservation, and they're able to just pinpoint all of these different aspects that are connected to the cheetah to help conserve not only cheetahs, but also the whole local wildlife over in that region. So it's fantastic. And so then finally, this last bit, so this is my most recent trip with GFP. So after graduation, I was brought on as a community learning leader. So as I mentioned earlier, basically the community learning leader helps the instructors facilitate the course, both the online portion and the field portion, through the assignments, through like logistics out in the field, through the activities, all different kinds of things. And so it was really interesting. And so it was my first time being a community learning leader on a GFP field course and on Earth expeditions. And it was an incredible experience. And kind of being on the other side of that and just seeing, kind of watching, and also in some cases like and helping students along and kind of like learning their sense of wonder out in Baja, kind of like what I did, and seeing them learning about their interests, what they do in their communities back home, sharing that with us in Baja, sharing that with our conservation partners, and just having a great time with them and kind of like helping them along their own journey, and then helping them back at home if they took their own experiences and their own journeys back home with them to their own communities. So it was incredible. So yeah, that's Kevin and I just having fun on the beach doing an activity there. And then we saw some dolphins, a bunch of other things in Sea of Cortez as well. So so in a very large nutshell, that's pretty much been my experience and Project Dragonfly so far. It's been an amazing experience, and hopefully I keep at it.
Thank you so much, Chandler. And yeah, it's totally about having your classroom be out in the world, whether it's at a zoo or botanical garden, or in this case in Baja. So let me bring it back, and I know there might be some questions that we missed, so we can look at that. But I want to go back into some of the logistics. And that question that is often asked, what will this program prepare me to do? So our mission is to build an alliance of individuals that are focused on inquiry-driven and community-based learning for the benefit of ecological communities, student achievement, and global understanding. And as Chandler's alluded to there, you're going to get to meet some amazing people, both the in-country partners if you travel, or the people that work at the zoos and botanical gardens, and also your peers. In fact, we read all the course evaluations we receive in our courses, and very consistently, one of the most common comments is that the inspiration came from the peers. So it's the people that you're going through this program with. And so this picture is just showing another group. This is in our Amazon course. and the content knowledge that the courses you will take in those 35 credit hours, it's going to focus on content such as biodiversity and evolution, community engagement methods. So how to do surveys, how to do focus groups, how to do informal action groups, different things like that, inquiry-based education, and then science writing. So there is a publication requirement in the program. By the time you graduate, you will submit something for a publication. And we walk you through that process, but a lot of it is learning you can be a leader, both academically and in your community, and finding your own voice and encouraging the voice of people that you work with. Our students have published in hundreds of journals and venues, but these are just some that are shown there, the marine ecology and the science teacher. We get asked the question sometimes, are we an education program or a science program? And we just say, yes, we are both. We are very much into education. We are in a biology department, but the foundation, like Jamie was talking about earlier, of this program was education, and education of children in particular. So we are all about that. Effective conservation needs to have education, and effective education is going to have sustainability involved. So in terms of the Earth expeditions, Chandler's kind of talked a lot about the 10 days in the field, but there's pre-field coursework that goes through a synthesis paper that you'll submit this online. And then afterwards, we didn't want these courses just to be something you do and you have this great experience and then it's over and you have pictures and that's it. We wanted folks to make change in their communities when they get inspired by these courses. So afterwards, you will do an inquiry action project where you really try to make change in your local area. And then we have also these core courses that we alluded to that are purely online. And also towards that question of how do you manage this with your work and your life, all of these are asynchronous. So the assignments are all laid out beforehand. So the minute you join in this semester, you'll be able to see all the assignments. You can sort of plan ahead. But that said, like Chandler mentioned, it takes time to read scientific papers. It takes time to write. So you do need to have those blocks of time. But we really do try to make this doable for people that are working. It is a good idea to talk with your supervisor, talk with your family or your friends, whoever you have responsibilities to before joining the program, just to make sure they're aware and that they see if they can support you and to what degree. And pretty much in terms of credit hours, you're going to take, in the fall semester, you're going to have 3 credit hours in the first year of the core courses. You might have another course with your AIP institution if you're in the AIP. So at any given time, you're going to have anywhere between 3 and 5 credit hours you're taking for the most part in each term. So that equates to, some would say that's about 15 hours of, sort of prep time per week that you're putting into those courses. So you might have a few blocks of time that you're thinking about those courses, or you might decide, you know what, I'm not going to do this program in 2.5 years. I'm going to do it in 5 years, and I'm going to do it at a slower pace so that I can have more time for the other things. And that's totally fine too. So these are some of the titles of the courses that we have that are the core courses. And now the AIP, I feel like because Chandler kind of sold everyone on GFP, I gotta really talk about AIP for a second. So the AIP, as someone, like I said, I grew up in New York City and I grew up going to the Bronx Zoo. And I know Chandler, you were talking about Zoo Atlanta, and all of us have our connections to either a wild place, or if we grew up in a city, usually it's like, a zoo or maybe a city park. But these zoos we work with, and we do also work with the Missouri Botanical Garden, they are like the top conservation organizations and outreach organizations in the country and in the world. So they are making a huge difference for people that live in cities and doing a lot of things with urban ecology in the cities, but they're also exposing them to nature, that is distant, that people might not get a chance to travel to. So what's really cool about these courses is that you're going to do online coursework with Myaamia and with a Myaamia professor like Jamie or myself. And then you're going to also meet at the zoo or botanical garden and connect with facilitators that work there that will make the theoretical stuff you're learning come alive. And so if you're at the San Diego Zoo and Wildlife Alliance, I think I got their new name right, maybe. If you're there, they have the frozen zoo, right? So they have a genetic repository of endangered and extinct animals. And you will get to tour that facility and see what is going on and what kind of work. I know there was a question there about, like, for Chandler, it was asking, like, in Namibia, did you get to actually do the research or were you watching, right? So with the Earth expeditions, a lot of times you're being exposed to it. You will actually collect data. We do in many of the locations collect data that goes into long-term data sets, kind of like citizen science. With the AIP as well, you're getting exposed to these things, but you can apply for internships to work either with the zoo or botanical garden and get your foot in the door in terms of a career, or you can work with other nature centers in that region where the AIP is located, because usually the zoos and botanical gardens, they have connections with other institutions around there. So there's a lot of opportunities for connecting with actual research and connecting with different career possibilities for folks. Okay, all right, I've gotten there. Do we want to stop and see if there's any quick questions? I know we're at 9 o'clock and I said we're going to try to do 1 hour, but we are going to end up going a little bit after, and I hope people can stay with us for another 10 or 15 minutes. Connie, is there anything? You can also take a look here.
Hold on. Hi, so sorry, I was just busily typing away. Tara, I was just answering Tara McKenney's question about who else, in addition, Kevin, to you and Jamie, serve as instructors for our program. So do you want to go ahead and address that in the webinar here?
Yeah, we have a large crew of probably 40 or 50, faculty with graduate level teaching credentials. And the cool thing is, like, some are based here at Myaamia and are full-time, and like myself and Jamie. And then we have a lot of folks that are adjuncts for us that have been working with us for years and will teach some of our field courses or get engaged in different ways. So it's just a wonderful group of faculty and people that instruct these courses.
And I just dropped a link to our team page in the chat if you want to check it out.
Great. Yeah. So you guys can check all that out with the team. And it's also a distributed, like, teaching model. So even though we have, like, faculty like myself and Jamie, right? But then we have other folks like our in-country partners, our facilitators at zoos, our community learning leaders. And really, we're not trying to just lecture, like, in any of these courses. We're trying to facilitate a learning community. So that is very much our philosophy. These are just up on the screen right now, or some of the types of inquiry projects people might ask. And again, like Chandler had mentioned, you should choose something that furthers your career and moves things forward. So if you're a teacher, you might do a project, looking at how well students retain different conservation topics, this middle bullet here, because maybe that's something you've always wanted to do as a teacher, right? But if you're working, with a nonprofit or some sort of, like, city municipal organization, we have urban planners, we have people in different careers in this program, you might be looking at, pollution levels or health issues or things like that. And some of this, for some of our students, they do things that don't relate at all to their career. They're like, my career is my career, but I want to do something totally different. So that's fine too. It's just a matter of time availability and figuring out what you can do. Okay, and here's just a quote from one of our students. Really, it's not just about the settings and the content knowledge, it's about learning about ourselves. I think as adult learners, and I have 2 kids. I have, middle-aged at this point in my life. There's a point in life where you kind of start to wonder, like, what else can I do? And I think this program, we're trying to inspire each other together, right? To kind of light that fire again about caring about the earth or caring about our own passions in life, right? So we hope, and we see this time and time again, that our students will reevaluate what they are capable of and really expand that. Okay, we're catching up a little bit here, and so I'll just pause a moment if anyone has any questions, and then we're going to get into some tips for the applications. So I see the question about the MAT degree. That is primarily designed for teachers who have, because the MAT does not give you a teaching license. So usually folks will already have that licensure and take the MAT. But sometimes people, like in your situation, Emily, where you are thinking about going into education, you might get that teaching licensure, then you might consider the MAT. So there's nothing that will forbid you from doing that. So just be very clear that you'll have to get that license elsewhere. So, okay. Julia has a question. Connie, do you want to answer it about the timeline of applications?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. So the Global Field Program and the Earth Expeditions Program, which is a suite of international field courses rather than a master's program in and of itself, both of those programs have January 28th application due dates. For the Global Field Program, we often begin sending out admission decisions toward the end of February, with all decisions, positive or negative, being received by the applicant by March 15th. For the Advanced Inquiry Program, that whole process is moved forward 1 month. Their application due date is February 28th. Again, decisions sometimes will be sent out for that program beginning in late March, but all admission decisions are shared by April 15th for the AIP.
Thanks. Okay. So some application tips, and Jamie, feel free to jump in on any of these. So as always, start early, because it does take time for transcripts to come to us from your undergraduate institution. And also recommendation letters. You want to be kind to your recommenders, of course. So these things are perhaps obvious, but just a good reminder. For references, I think this can be tricky if you've been out of school for a while, or if you've had a career that's on hold, or maybe you've been parenting or doing something where you don't necessarily have a ton of academic or professional references. But wherever you can, try, and that's certainly understandable in those cases, you may end up with a personal reference. But in most cases, you're going to want to try to find professional workplace type reference letters and or academic ones from your undergraduate or other courses you may have taken.
Or volunteer. We do have a lot of folks who have been out of the workforce for a while, but have been volunteering, and that's another great reference.
Great. Yes, that's another good one. So for the essays, there's 2 essays and they're pretty short. Just take your time with them, thinking about it. Make sure you read about the program. Of course, we don't want to read an essay that thinks that we are Miami University in Florida. So make sure you understand about the program. Everyone here tonight, I'm sure, has looked through the web pages to some degree, and just keep doing that. And relate it to what you're trying to do. It's great if you are really passionate about conservation, but what specifically are you interested in? What are some things you can list that you want to accomplish in the program? And highlight, like Jamie was saying, any volunteer stuff you've done or any things you're interested in learning more about. A lot of times people will think, oh, I actually you might initially come up blank on some of these things, but if you give it a little time, you're going to realize you have probably more connections than you realize. There is a resume upload as a part of the application, so you make sure you want to update that, make sure the dates are up to date, and you've added all different volunteering things you've been involved in, any volunteer, any different things you've done. Sometimes with uploads to application systems, formatting gets wonky, so maybe like double check the uploading worked just fine as you're sort of like looking through and double checking your application materials. For the AIP applicants, most of our zoo and botanical garden partners have either open house sessions physically at the zoo where you will go and learn about the program, or sometimes now they're doing that via Zoom, but I definitely recommend, attending those because they can speak specifically to that local institution, the course of study that occurs there, and it'll connect you with those facilitators. So explore those websites in addition to our main Miami website. We do have an undergraduate minimum GPA of 275, but we also realize that a lot of people may have struggled in their undergraduate and then gone on to have an amazing career, and it's been a number of years, or perhaps in undergraduate, they were handling things that made it really hard to focus on studies. So the point here is to say that you will see this undergraduate minimum, but don't let that deter you if that's your situation. We want to look at each individual as a whole and the application as a whole. And we will petition for folks that have unique circumstances or have a longer history that explains their academic situation. So please just feel free to be in communication with us if that applies to you. Okay. I'll check the chat and maybe Connie, you can start talking through some of these slides.
Hi, sorry, I keep typing. So a little bit more about the application process. Depending on which of the programs you're planning to apply to, where you'd want to start would be really navigating to that specific program's page. Here on this slide, you can see a little screenshot of the apply page for our Earth Expeditions program, and they're all formatted very similarly. If you're on that home page, you're going to see both a button to apply in the right-hand column, as well as an apply page link in the left column. Next slide. So to apply for Earth Expeditions, there are really only 2 steps. The first one, which many of you probably have already done for either Earth Expeditions, the Advanced Inquiry Program, or the Global Field Program, is to fill out what we call the pre-application or I'm interested form. It's just a quick form that gets you into our system, lets us know of your interest, and puts you into our database so we can connect with you and tell you more about our program. The second step for Earth Expeditions is completing an account in our My Project Dragonfly system. For EE, this is where you'll submit your essays, where you'll submit your resume. No transcripts are required, and you'll also submit your Earth Expeditions course choices. That's different for Earth Expeditions than it is for the 2 master's degree programs. Next slide. So Global Field Program, this looks very similar to Earth Expeditions. As you can see, the 2 apply buttons or links are indicated. Next slide. And here for both the GFP and the AIP, there are 3 application steps. The I'm interested form that we addressed before, My Project Dragonfly, which we've also mentioned. And then number 3 for both the Global Field Program and the Advanced Inquiry Program is applying to the Miami Graduate School. One of you all asked earlier, do you complete the regular application to the graduate school or their application for online programs? It is the latter. And one way we do share that. So the link that you see here, the graduate school application blue button, does take you directly to the online application. If you went straight to the graduate school site though, and happened to click the, again, I'm using air quotes, the regular application, you'd actually see that you would not have the option to choose either of our 2 degrees. As Jamie shared, the Master of Arts in Biology or the Master of Arts in Teaching. Next slide. AIP, this is very familiar again, the 2 links. Next slide. And again, same thing, 3 steps for the Advanced Inquiry Program. I want to say one other thing, if you have not yet started your graduate school application, one of the things we've learned about the online application is when you fill out the first part to create and start that account, you'll very quickly get an automated email, which offers a link back to the applicant portal. If you navigate there right away, you actually won't see the buttons to continue. There is a bit of a time delay, and so you'll want to allow 10 to 15 minutes after you first create that account before you go to finish it. If you find that you've inadvertently created 2 or even 3 accounts, please don't worry about that. We can help take care of that on our end. All right.
Hey, thanks, Connie.
Sure.
So we've put up our emails there. And again, unfortunately, Jeannie wasn't able to join us, but Chandler's emails there, Jamie, myself, Connie, if you have any questions about any of these processes, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help. And so I want to stop sharing now. And I know we've actually probably had a few questions we missed, so we can start to talk about that. And I just also want to see if Jamie or Chandler wants to jump in with anything. And I also want to, if folks need to go, I know we've gone over time, so it's not rude. Feel free, if you need to go, you can just sign out. That's fine too, but we'll stay for a few more minutes and address a few more questions. So Jamie, Chandler, did you have anything you wanted to jump in with, any of the questions or things you were thinking about?
There is a question about career change, you know, and that kind of thing. And one of the things with our master's degree is that a lot of folks stay where they are, and they sort of look at the world through this new lens and sort of better the communities that they're in currently. So that's some of the folks in our program. Other folks in our programs, you know, want to make a career shift. I know of a teacher a high school biology teacher who is now a director of education at an aquarium. I had a student who works with spectacled bears in Laos. I have another student who works for WCS in Vietnam. Another student who moved to a new location and created a job, like went to the local government board, city council, and presented an idea to create a job. And they created the job and gave that job to her. And so you might advance in your current profession, you might stay where you are, you might advance in your current position. And then we've got folks who change careers as well.
Great, yeah, and we deliberately keep everyone, at some point we wondered, should we have all the teachers in one section and all the, you know, conservation folks, and we deliberately mix everyone. And one of the things that's interesting is folks, some of the teachers will say, oh, I really want to work at a zoo now. And some of the folks that work at zoos will say, I really want to be a teacher, and not understanding how hard both those positions are. But yeah, there's definitely options for different unique careers and things through this program.
And there was a slide earlier that Kevin showed that said that our mission is about creating an alliance. And that's really, in a nutshell, what it is about. It's creating, you know, these awesome, already awesome, but more learned people about how to change human and ecological communities through conservation action. And so we have at any given time about 1,000 current students. And Connie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we have 1,700 alumni. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have, it's a big alliance. It's a big network.
So if anyone also wants to be brave and turn on your camera or just go off mute, you can also ask verbally a question. I think that's 100% fine if anyone wants to jump in with anything.
Nobody? Oh, I see.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I was just wondering, I'm up here in Canada, so I was just wondering, do you offer any grants or scholarships that people can apply for and stuff for the program?
Well, you might have, if you've looked at the cost page, you probably realized that the costs are much lower than a typical master's degree. So, and the university has supported us so significantly by lowering those, the tuition and fees for our class, because they believe so strongly in what it is that we're doing. So already it's lower. There is no out-of-state fee surcharge. Everybody, whether you're in the state of Ohio or in the state of Texas or in Canada or South Africa, pays the same rate.
Okay.
So we're working on creating a scholarship or two for for entering students, but right now we don't have scholarships for entering students. We do have a few small scholarships for current students. So you would already be in the program and be able to apply for those. But we do have a grants page, just like suggestions, and I'll go find it and put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
In terms of, paying for this, definitely ask your employers if you're in a situation, you might have a supervisor or you might have a situation where they will pay for some of this. So that's obviously great. There's also, you can take loans is another option. Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, thank you. So I'm wondering, is there do you have an idea of how many students can be accepted based on the institution that we're nearby? So if I'm like in Cleveland, is there already kind of an understood number that can be accepted based on how many you already have? And I'm just wondering, if there are programs that can't accept students this year, and then we would know to wait until next year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is a good point. So Cleveland, many of the AIP institutions have probably around 20, they will accept between 20-ish and 30, 35 students. So, sometimes if you're willing to also drive to Cincinnati, you might put a note in your application, Cleveland or Cincinnati. That's some of our folks do that, and we will note those sorts of things. So yeah, there is a little bit of limitation. I would say historically, San Diego and Chicago have probably had the highest number of applicants, and also Cincinnati of late has been pretty competitive in terms of applying. So those are sort of the 2 or 3 that come to mind as being a little bit perhaps more difficult to get into if it's due to the numbers.
Thank you.
Yep. That's a great question Kamoya put in, and I know Connie, you just responded to it. I don't know, Chandler, you want to jump in on that one? How do we feel about a program that's largely online, and for someone that's not super comfortable with that or nervous about it?
Yeah, so this is the first time that I had an online experience with any kind of schooling. Pretty much, like everywhere else, high school, elementary, middle, college, university, all of that. It was in person. So it was definitely an adjustment, but also, at least for me, especially with my particular situation with the jobs I had and everything, I did appreciate the flexibility in that way. I mean, part of it's just like, it's like, oh, I have all the time, but then it's like, oh my gosh, I have all this time. So it's kind of like, oh, going back to that time management thing. It's like, okay, I have this time free. I have to have this block of time to do what I need to do. And if you need the extra time, communicating that to your instructors as well. Um, and on the pages, like even from right when you start the course, they actually have all the due dates of the different assignments and projects listed from like the beginning all the way to the end. So the way it's like the great way to kind of like plan out, okay, how much would I need to do over this time period to get this done in a reasonable amount of time. So for me, it was great because especially as I moved around a whole lot between occupations before I settled down here at Dallas Zoo, it was I really appreciated the flexibility of online, and on top of that, also having the instructors like being supportive in any way. Like there were times I got in a bind. Like there was one day, like literally a couple of days before my assignment to do, my laptop just broke. It was just chaos, and I'm just like emailing my phone. So emergency, this happened and everything. I'm gonna need some extra time with this, and they're like, say no more. Like we'll work with you, and kind of just went from there. So even for certain debacles that I've had throughout the program, whether it's been changing projects or say my laptop breaks or anything like that, just constantly communicating with instructors about like what's going on, and then also just having that general flexibility about like, okay, here's what's coming up. I found to be very, very helpful.
And realize that, I was just going to say, realize that people are, the icons in the online workshops are actual humans. And so, and if you can Zoom or phone call with them and realize, then it's not so intimidating.
I wanted to just add also, one of the things that our students absolutely appreciate, because our students, as Kevin and Jamie have shared, span the globe. So we have students in 47 different states and 10 different countries right now. So everybody's in a different time zone. And our classes, except for the field experiences and the Web Plus classes, are asynchronous. So as Chandler is talking about, there's a lot of flexibility. So if you are like I am, and you get up at 6 and you're like ready to roll, but you're asleep by an hour and a half ago, then you can do all your work in the morning. Or if you're like my son and your like world starts at 10 p.m. and you can go till the wee hours of the morning, you can do that too. So it is adaptable around your work, your family, your children, your whatever responsibilities you have going on in your life. And I just want to say, like, as somebody who's observed this, not as long as Jamie, just a hair longer than Kevin, though it's an online program, I think Chandler can certainly speak to this too. It is so personal. It is the most compassionate, caring, supportive, like so many adjectives come to mind right now, team of people that support you in your educational journey that I can imagine, that I can envision, from your instructional team to the advisory team, to our staff, to your fellow students. The people with whom you will be engaged in these classes are an amazing network of support. So the online learning can be scary. We had, and I know we're going to have to go, but one of our very first 2009 students, I swear, I was like, he just came down the mountain, picked up the phone and called me at the beginning of every single semester, trying to figure out the tech. And I sort of looked forward to those calls every time. And by George, we got him through. So if you feel like you're not super tech savvy, one, you're going to have a lot of support. Two, you can ask all the questions you want. There are no stupid questions. And three, by your second semester, you're going to be a master at these things. I promise you that you will be. So please don't let the tech piece of it intimidate you.
One of another interesting side note is that when we designed the current, we don't use Myaamia's online learning communities. We built our own in the late 90s. That was one of the many projects of our octopus of projects we've had throughout the years. And so we built it in the late 90s, before Blackboard, before most learning systems, and we have been improving upon it, since then. And Miami has been through, I think, 4 different web learning systems to our one. And we designed it purposely, as Connie was describing, to be as sort of personal and community building, even visually, as we could. And I think that most of our students come in not having experience with online learning. It's changing, more and more folks are doing more and more things online. But I would venture to say that most folks come in not having, taken a class online. So you'd be in good company.
Great. All right. Well, I know we've gone over, and I feel like people are being polite by just not leaving us. But it's been lovely to share this with you all. I hope it's been useful. And like I said, reach out with anything else.
And we are recording this, so we'll follow up everyone who's registered. You all obviously are registered. We'll send a link to the recording so that you can see it. I see someone, speaking of time differences, just logged in from California, and yes, you will get a link with the recording, access to the recording.
Thanks to all of you saying thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to share, and thanks Chandler, Jamie, Connie, everyone. And have a great night, everyone, or afternoon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.